Next on, it is my great pleasure to invite on stage Alexandre Fonseca, who is the CEO of Altice Portugal and a returning guest to our conference, as well as our president, Ronan, to join me here for a keynote chat with Alexandre. Please.
Good to see you again. How are you?
Alexandre, last time we met 1 year ago in Marseille, you were the CTO of Portugal Telecom. And since then, you have become the CEO of Altice Portugal. Well, first of all, congratulations. And secondly, could you please tell us about your path? What has happened over the last year?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. True, some changes have happened in the last year. I would say that it's been an honor for me, of course, not only to lead now the biggest operation in Portugal in telecom market, but most of it, I would say that it's relevant to say that the path that has been made has a lot to do with the project that we have outlined in 2015 when Altice acquired Portugal Telecom. By the time we acquired an incumbent, it was the first time Altice acquired an incumbent, despite the fact that we are already present in over 10 countries. The challenges were a little bit different because having in mind our strategy, which is and remains to get 100% fiber under our operations, of course that as an incumbent, the challenges were, I would say, in haste. What happened in between was exactly the fact that from the technology space, what we did was a huge transformation and consolidation program, which not only, I would say, created a more efficient environment in everything that went around technology and operations, but also by consolidating, we created a more agile company. When I say consolidation, the work that I started and now our new CTO, Luis Alvarinho, which will also be with you today, is continuing this path, is to converge a set of activities which sometimes are totally apart, but in the last, I would say, 10 years in terms of technology have become more and more embedded in between. Things like IT, network engineering, network operations, field operations, special operations, even B2B delivery areas are, I would say, have a common point, which is the need to be effective in everything that regards the operation itself. So the consolidation that we made, that we started and we are still deploying, was exactly this enhancement of the way we do our day-to-day business on the operations side, and this created not only a huge saving in terms of cost, but also created a more agile company. And I believe that this was one of the reasons why the changes that happen now have made a person that comes from technology like myself to lead the biggest player in telecom space in Portugal.
Thank you. Looking at the Portuguese market perhaps a little bit more broadly, what do you see as the latest developments? Obviously, it's a very advanced fiber market in terms of deployment, but I wonder whether deployment, availability, and take-up of fiber-based services go hand in hand. What is your experience?
Well, it's true that Portugal is, in fact, a very mature market. We are roughly, I would say, between 5 to 6 million households country, and it's true that broadband has been massively deployed in the urban areas in the last few years. So it's not all fiber, unfortunately, because we still have a huge footprint, not only of copper on DSL from Portugal Telecom, but essentially there's also a lot of cable covering the country. But it's true that I would say in the last 4 or 5 years, optical fiber deployment has boomed, especially with investments made first by Portugal Telecom and now by Altice Portugal. Nevertheless, I would say that our project remains one of the biggest investments in the country. We have announced back in 2015 that we wanted to cover, I would say, over 90% of the population with optical fiber. We would like to reach 5.3 million households with optical fiber by 2020. This is, of course, an enormous challenge in terms of investment, in terms of operation, but a huge enhancement for the country and the national economy as well. The good news is, and I can tell you, this is public information, that we have just recently announced in the third quarter last year that we went above the 4 million homes passed mark, and we are now over the 4.1 million homes passed mark as we speak. So I would say that being able to deliver in cruise speed around 750 to 850 homes passed per year is a tremendous challenge that we've proven to be possible and successful. This, of course, is something that for us, it's relevant, not only for the infrastructure of the country itself, but essentially as well because we believe that the switchover from lower broadband technologies like DSL and in some cases even the cable industry towards fiber, it's clearly a differentiator towards what people are looking for in terms of usage. And yes, we've seen that the take-ups, of course I cannot provide data on that, but we've seen that the take-up rates are, I would say, in line with our expectations. That's what I can tell you.
Alexandre, clearly Altice Portugal has had fantastic progress with regard to the fibre to the home penetration so far to date, and it certainly sounds like the plans in place continue to build on those ambitions. What can Altice Portugal do uniquely to ensure that we don't end up with a fibre divide, particularly for the rural communities out there?
That's extremely important because it's true that we have announced a huge project to fiber over 90% of the population, and we want that Portugal by 2020 to be one of the first European countries to reach very close to 100% of the population covered with fiber. But this is important not only for the challenge, which is huge, for the investment, which is huge, but essentially for one thing that we have put in our minds from day one, which is the proximity concept. Proximity means that being Altice Portugal, being the historical inheritance of an incumbent, we still believe that it's our responsibility, even on a social impact responsibility perspective, to give back to the country some of the investments that we have done and the growth that we have been experiencing. So since day one, we have created a part of our program which is assigned to rural municipalities. This means that under our program to fiber the country, we are not doing what others have done and are still doing in Portugal, which is to take a look at only the big, dense urban areas as a commercial focus to deploy fiber. We are deploying fiber in extremely rural areas, in low density areas, where the pure business case is not the only driver. The driver is local economy development, is to fight desertification of rural areas, is to being able to attract investment and create jobs, to fight unemployment as well. So this is something that we have put in our own perspective, in our own projects. And yes, it's true that we do believe that children that comes from the rural areas have the same opportunities regarding access to IT, to infrastructure, to communication technologies. They have the same right of the other children that live in the big capitals, in the big cities. So this is something that we are giving back. And I can tell you that, for example, we've just announced this weekend a new set of our project where we will provide over 75% penetration or coverage of optical fiber in 6 very rural districts around our biggest mountain in Portugal. So our 6 very rural municipalities that by this summer will have 75% of their population covered with fiber, which is going from almost 0 to 100, because it's areas where today the only access to technology is either copper or satellite.
Sure. Very refreshing to hear. Critically important, I think, as we go forward.
Looking at more broadly your consumers, so not only the rural ones, but your entire consumer footprint, a lot of them have had fiber for a while now. Do you see any major changes in consumer behavior where they actually have fiber available to them? This is a topic that is very close to our heart, and actually tomorrow we will be launching a new study on the socioeconomic benefits of fiber, which is mostly based on the experience in Sweden, but we would be very interested in the Portuguese experience as well.
Well, It's true that, of course, by laying down fiber and doing this massive rollout throughout the country, that we have also followed along with the launch of commercial offers. For instance, gigabit connectivity, symmetrical connectivity. So all this kind of ultra broadband connectivity is now being provided. Nevertheless, I wouldn't say that the biggest driver in terms of adoption and usage patterns, it's not just a question of all you can eat in terms of broadband. It's much more than that. First, it's also the change in paradigm of what customers desire. We know that video is the killer app on broadband. So what we see more than just people eating up 1 gigabit connectivity is people changing their habits towards what it is, the consumption of video, linear, non-linear, over the top or not. So this is an example which is not a direct consequence, but it's indirect, and we believe which is a trend to follow. Also important is usage patterns and usage behaviors that go beyond the home. We see more and more in public services in Portugal, like education and healthcare. Those are two good examples, where in fact, the fact that fiber now gets to all municipalities, to all the countries, to those rural municipalities that I've just described, we now have health centers, pharmacies, we have basic schools, etc., which are now connected with fiber, and this leads to a total different approach towards public services. So it's true that sometimes we just associate directly with the retail market, with the residential market, but what we see is that public services are also tremendously benefiting from this fiber rollout, and most of that's where we see the usage pattern changing, because it's totally different for a school with 200 kids to have a DSL connection with 2 megabits per second or having a 1 gigabit connection. Third, and last but not least, it's also Portugal is an SMB, a small and medium business market. So what we see as well is that these very small or micro companies are also taking a lot of benefit from low-cost broadband connectivity provided by fiber.
You talked there about the different ways of engagement, particularly government agencies, etc. Let's talk about the business model, the business case around fiber. Within Altice Portugal, have you found now, with your penetration of fiber increasing across the board, that it's opening up new opportunities to generate new revenue streams that just simply wouldn't be possible with the old mediums?
Well, yes. First, of course, as I told you just before, the SMB, the small and medium businesses, is clearly a way for small companies that before only had the fiber point-to-point availability. Now with GPON availability, this means creating a more democratic environment for access to broadband technologies. Yep. So this is clearly one. On the retail segment, what we are looking, and I won't get into too much details by obvious reasons, but we are looking towards a total shift in what it is usage patterns from residential customers. It's not just about the prêt-à-porter, the one size fits all. That's not what customers want anymore. Customers want their size. They want tailor-made solutions. And to provide tailor-made solutions, especially looking at video as the killer app, this means a totally different mindset to what it is bundling and packaging services to the home. So this is also a way to monetize fiber. And by monetizing this and bundling this, we also put on the loop different services. We are an aggregator of content by definition. Yep. So being an aggregator of content and of applications of third parties also allows us to monetize. Third and last is the importance of wholesale as well. We have presented in Portugal last year a commercial offer for wholesale access to our fiber. So this means that we open up to our competitors our fiber on a GPON perspective, not on a co-investment model, because we do the investment on ourselves, but then on a wholesale model with an entry fee and a recurring fee as well. So unfortunately, competitors are, I would say, resistant to adopt this commercial offer, but it's there for the taking. We have the capacity to do it, and I believe it's also a way to monetize what we have been doing in the country.
Okay. Altice Portugal is probably in somewhat of a unique position. Given the level of penetration that you have now, you're able to reflect with real-world experience on the differences in the operational cost between the traditional copper networks versus the new fiber networks. Are there any findings you can share with us?
Absolutely. The first, it's more obvious, I would say, is the fact that in terms of service visits, in terms of disconnections and voluntary disconnections, etc., of course, it's obvious that everything that goes around fiber, it's much more effective and efficient than what goes around copper. So it's true that in the places where we are doing this shift from copper to fiber, we are experiencing more savings in terms of our operations in the field. That's obvious for us. But it's also important to reflect that I would say the retention of customers, customer loyalty in areas where we are deploying fiber, it's proven, and now it's clearly proven to be much more, there's a stickiness from the customers to our services on fiber. So migration from copper to fiber is an experience that we have been doing, and it pays off as well in our perspective. Of course, then it comes with all our projects that we have on the engineering front, which is also without creating, of course, even because we have rules in the country that doesn't allow us to decommission copper unless a certain amount of rules are obliged for, of course. But nevertheless, the less occupancy of the traditional digital switches, etc., allows us to gradually reduce the amount of copper and the amount of digital switches that we have in the field, and that also brings to us additional efficiency and cost savings. So on all those perspectives, so customer stickiness, of operational efficiency, technological efficiency, cost savings, in all those fronts, it's true that fiber pays off. But again, let me just stress that it's not all about the business case, as I told you. There's a social impact to it that we are also responsible to do, and we are doing it happily to contribute to the development of our economy as well.
No, for sure, absolutely. And it sounds like it's a collection of ingredients. There's no one silver bullet that people can look towards. True. Very good.
Coming back a little bit to your original technology background, in looking a little bit into the future, what would you expect to be kind of the next technology development that will be deployed, the next technology advancement that will be deployed, and how would you expect those technological advances to alter or elevate the end user experience?
I do believe that if we speak purely on technology perspectives, we believe that our GPON FTTH, and we are doing really FTTH, or fiber to the home, in all our deployments, we are talking fiber to the home directly. We believe that fiber to the home with GPON, in terms of the fixed industry, that's something that we do believe that will remain. It's an infrastructure that we are deploying that will be there available for the country for the upcoming years or decades. So I would say that on a technology perspective, in terms of next steps, I would see more relevantly the development on mobile or wireless technologies. One of them is clearly everything that goes around wireless connectivity at home. Customers at home, now that they have ultra broadband for a reasonable price, they want more and more convenient services. So Wi-Fi, Zigbee, all those wireless protocols that flow around the house to provide convenience on the usage of the services, it's clearly an area of investment, and it's clearly an area that we are very actively looking at. The other one is, of course, IoT and machine-to-machine. With everything that we have done in infrastructure in the country, we are now able to provide, and we are doing that as well, our single run project, our 4G modernization, the launch of 4G Plus or 4G Advanced that we have just launched last year as well. So all this brings a brand new world, not only for people, but also for connected devices and connected sensors. So everything that goes around IoT and machine-to-machine is an area that we are investing. We have started to deploy our narrowband IoT network as well throughout the country, and this is an area of focus. On the more applicational front, I would say that artificial intelligence is one of the areas that we are focusing. Not that much on the more, I would say, the more common or the part of artificial intelligence that people see more as sci-fi in what it is, the touch points with people. We see it more on the network part, on how artificial intelligence can bring, again, efficiency and effectiveness to our networks. Self-healing mechanisms, the way to know our networks and to balance capacity depending on usage patterns, patterns, etc. So all this is an area where we are investing on big data and artificial intelligence. So this would be, technology speaking, the next big trends that we see. But again, one of the things, it's not technology, but it's also offer, it's the commercial offer, and as I told you before, it's not one size fits all, it's also to be able to adapt technology to what the customers want, and customers want tailor-made solutions more and more, and that's also where we are focusing.
Great.
One of the hot topics today that's cropped up with pretty much every speaker so far has been the whole view on 5G, and the assertion that's been made by quite a few, including myself, is that 5G goes hand in hand with very deep fibre penetration. I'd love to hear your views on that, and also to understand, given the level of fibre penetration that you guys enjoy today, how you view Altice Portugal, how well they're positioned to be one of the forerunners in the 5G deployments in Europe.
Well, we see that as exactly as the same way as when we build a home, when we build a house. First, you need to lay down the grounds. And for us, the grounds are there.
Sure.
Infrastructurally speaking, all our antennas, all our towers, 95% of our mobile sites are connected with fiber as we speak. So this means that for us, the question that Enrique just spoken just before about the need to have multiple gigabit connection to the mobile sites, it's something that I do believe it's the right approach, and we've been doing that with our massive rollout of optical fiber. So as I told you, 95% of our mobile stations are connected with fiber, so they are 5G ready in that sense. Now, the next layer is exactly the kind of services that we put on top. And to put those services on top of these infrastructures, it's true that we are still debating a lot in terms of what will be the killer app, what will be the way to monetize the investment, how do we monetize a new investment where we are still trying to amortize the investments that we did on 4G and 4G+. How do we convince users that they need 5G when we are providing 300, 400 megabits connectivity on 4G networks as well, still. So I have a lot of doubts in terms of the rush that people are having in the last sense, which is the roof of the home, which is to provide 5G services.
Sure.
We are looking at it, we have labs, we are studying, we are analyzing, but that's the rooftop. So it's the last thing that we will touch base. The mid part of this home, it's really something that has already been spoken here before, and it's something where we are more actively working, which is the different paradigm in terms of technology to support 5G services, which is virtualization. So besides having mobile sites connected with fiber, we need to have all our infrastructures, all our platforms, all our applications ready to sustain the level of connectivity, the level of density, the level of throughput that will be required for 5G.
Sure.
So working on the data center, the edge data center approach, working on the virtualization approach, working on changing the architectures of our systems and our services. This is clearly the second layer after the fiber, the second layer where we are working on. And then later on, there will be the roof of the home, which will be the services, and how do we monetize those.
For sure. Thank you.
Our last question today to you. We are still at quite at the beginning of this year of 2018. 14th of February, actually, as Roberto Viola has pointed out in his video messages, Valentine's Day today. So what would be your top 3 goals, or if you like, top 3 wishes for 2018?
Well, I would say that the first wish and goal at the first time is that Altice Portugal remains a market leader in Portugal, remains a leader in all the segments that we operate, where we are leaders, but also that we are able to grow our customer base, to grow our profitability, because it's not because we are an incumbent that we are forced to be stuck or even to decline in terms of market shares. We believe that we can be a modern incumbent, we can continue to lead, and we can continue to grow, and that's our goal. The second goal or second wish would be definitely that we continue to pursue our innovation front. We have our labs in Portugal for Altice Group worldwide. These labs have been tremendously important in our optical fiber rollout, and we want to continue to invest in innovation. And this investment in innovation will be side by side with a social investment that we are doing with all our optical fiber deployment to give back to the population populations and to the economy of the country what we have been able to achieve. So I would say that goal number 2 would be to keep Altice Portugal as the driving engine for the economy growth in Portugal, but also to the growth of the social impact of technology in people's lives and to benefit people's lives and to improve people's lives as well. So this would be goal number 2. And well, goal number 3, having in mind that just this last weekend, Portugal has won the European Championships of Indoor Soccer, having in mind that 2 years ago we were the European Championships of Portugal, of soccer as well. And by the way, Altice Portugal is the main sponsor of Portuguese football. We sponsor not only the male national team, but also the female team, also the young teams, beach soccer and indoor soccer as well. And we are in the year of the World Cup. I would say that my third wish would be that Ronaldo and the Portuguese team would be world champions as well.
Very good.
Thank you very much, Alexandre.
Thank you.
This
Thank
was
you.
fantastic.
Thank you.